Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. We've gotten tons of requests to cover this topic, English fluency.
Yes.
And you guys sent in this really interesting video all about it.
Yeah.
It's called Building English Fluency with Simple Conversations. So
I love that title.
yeah. So let's dive into it
Okay, let's do it.
and see what kind of actionable advice we can get out of it that you guys can use.
Perfect.
So, this idea of building fluency through simple conversations.
Right.
Why focus on simplicity?
Well, I think it's really interesting because people often think that they need to jump into complex grammar and really difficult vocabulary right away.
Right?
But this video makes the argument that that's not really the best way to go.
That's interesting. Why do they think that starting small is more effective?
Well, think about it this way. Imagine you're learning to ride a bike.
Okay.
You wouldn't start on a mountain bike on like a crazy trail, right? You'd start with a basic bike on level ground. And it's the same with language. If you start with these really manageable conversations, basic greetings, how are you, what's the weather like?
Right. Simple things.
Simple things. It actually reduces anxiety and builds confidence.
Oh, that makes sense.
Because you're having these small wins.
Right.
And it creates a positive feedback loop that motivates you to keep practicing.
Yeah, that's such a good analogy.
Thanks.
And I think for someone who's maybe feeling intimidated
Yeah.
by the idea of, mastering English,
For sure.
this approach seems a lot less scary.
Definitely.
So less overwhelming.
Absolutely. And the video even gives us like practical examples of these really simple conversations.
Right.
They mention greetings, obviously, talking about the weather, asking about someone's day, even like ordering food or drinks.
Right. Those are like everyday interactions that we have all the time.
Exactly. The kind of stuff you're going to encounter on a regular basis.
Right. And they actually show a little example of like ordering food at a cafe.
Yeah, they do.
I thought that was really helpful.
Yeah, I thought so too. Like it just shows you like how simple it can be.
Totally. And I'm wondering, like, could we maybe try role-playing one of these scenarios
Ew.
for our listener?
I'm down.
Just to, like, bring it to life a little bit.
Here, what do you have in mind?
Let's try ordering food.
Okay.
So, like, imagine we're at a cafe.
Okay, I got it.
You can be the barista, and I'll be the customer.
Sounds good.
And I'll really try to keep it simple.
Okay.
Use vocabulary that I'm comfortable with.
Gotcha. All right. What can I get for you?
I'd like a coffee, please.
Okay, sure. What kind of coffee would you like? We have latte cappuccino Americano.
I think I'll have a latte, please.
Oh.
Do you have almond milk?
Yes, we do.
Great.
Anything else for you?
Nope, that's all for now. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh.
See, that wasn't so hard, was it?
It really wasn't.
Oh, no.
Even though it was like such a simple interaction,
Yeah.
I already feel a little bit more confident.
I love that.
So the video also offers some tips
Mhm.
to make these simple conversations even easier. Like one of them is starting with short sentences, using familiar vocabulary.
Of course.
It also mentions asking open-ended questions,
Yes.
which are questions that can't just be answered with like a yes or a no.
Right. Right.
Why are those helpful?
Well, because when you ask an open-ended question, it forces the other person to elaborate,
Right.
which gives you more opportunity to listen and to process the language.
Right.
And it takes the pressure off of you to speak extensively.
Yeah, you're not just like carrying the whole conversation.
Exactly. You can just kind of guide it with questions and learn from the other person's responses.
So it's about finding that balance between speaking and listening.
Yeah, for sure.
The video also talks about listening and repeating key phrases.
Oh, that's a good one.
I find myself doing that naturally
Me too.
when I'm trying to learn something new.
Yeah.
Why is that an effective technique?
Well, because when you listen and repeat, you're basically mimicking the natural rhythm and intonation of the language.
Oh, okay.
And you're also training your ear to recognize and reproduce those sounds.
So it's not just about like memorizing the words.
Right.
It's also about absorbing like the music of the language.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. It's like training your ear and your tongue to work together.
I love that.
Okay.
Okay, so all of this sounds great in theory,
Right.
but how can someone actually integrate these tips into their daily life?
That's the question.
Especially if they don't have a speaking partner readily available.
Right. We'll have to dive into that. Well, that's a great question because even if you don't have like a regular speaking partner,
Right.
there are still tons of ways that you can practice and incorporate this into your everyday life.
Yeah.
The video mentions a few things, like
Sure.
talking to yourself,
Okay.
thinking in English,
Oh, yeah.
or just listening to English podcasts or music.
Those are all really good ideas.
Yeah.
I definitely catch myself
I do.
like narrating my actions in English
Yes.
when I'm cooking or doing chores.
Yeah.
It feels a little silly sometimes.
Yeah.
But it definitely helps.
It does. It's all about creating like an immersive environment
Okay.
where you're just constantly exposed to the language.
Got it. So, even that kind of passive listening to English
Yes.
can be beneficial.
Absolutely. Because it helps you internalize like the rhythm and intonation,
Okay.
and it expands your vocabulary.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and you get exposed to different accents and speaking styles.
It's like soaking it up through osmosis.
Exactly.
But what about like active practice?
Okay.
If you don't have someone to actually talk to,
Right.
how can you improve your speaking skills?
So there are a lot of different ways that you can practice speaking, even if you're by yourself.
Okay.
One technique that the video mentions is called shadowing.
Shadowing.
Yeah, have you ever heard of that?
I think so, but could you explain it?
Yeah, so basically you listen to a recording in English and you try to repeat it as accurately as possible, like mimicking the pronunciation and the intonation.
So you're like shadowing the speaker.
Exactly. You're trying to sound just like them.
Wow, that sounds really challenging.
It can be, but it's really effective.
Okay. Are there any other methods that you recommend?
Yeah, so another one is to record yourself speaking in English.
Okay.
You could describe your day, talk about your interests, read a short passage from a book.
Yeah.
Anything like that, and then listen back to the recording and identify areas where you can improve.
Oh, that's such a good idea, because then you can kind of become aware of your own strengths and weaknesses.
Exactly. Like, are you struggling with certain sounds? Are you pausing a lot?
Yeah.
Is your intonation a little flat?
Yeah, all those little things.
Yeah, exactly. And don't be afraid to make mistakes.
Right.
Because mistakes are part of the learning process.
Of course.
Everybody makes them.
Yeah.
The key is to identify them and work on improving.
So the video also emphasizes the importance of consistency.
Oh, yes.
Daily practice. Why is that so crucial?
Well, think about it like physical exercise. If you only went to the gym like once a month, you wouldn't see much progress, right?
No, probably not.
It's the same principle with language.
Yeah?
You need to practice regularly in order to build and maintain your skills.
So it's not about cramming in hours of study.
No, not at all.
It's more about making it part of your daily routine.
Exactly. Even just 15, 20 minutes a day can make a huge difference.
That's encouraging.
Yeah.
Because some people might be intimidated by, the thought of spending hours and hours studying.
Exactly.
So it's really quality over quantity.
Exactly.
That's good to know. I love that, you mentioned earlier that fluency is a journey.
Yes.
What does that journey actually look like? Are there different stages that someone might go through?
Oh, absolutely. There are.
As they're developing their English fluency.
Yeah. And we'll explore that in the next part of our deep dive.
I think it helps to think about it like a journey with like different stages.
Oh, yeah.
It's not just about reaching the destination.
Right.
It's also about like enjoying the scenery along the way.
I love that. And, every learner's journey is unique. Some people might progress quickly through certain stages, while others might take a bit more time.
Right.
There's no right or wrong way to do it.
So what are some of those common stages that someone might experience on their path to English fluency?
Well, in the beginning, there's often like a silent period.
Oh, silent period.
Yeah, where you're absorbing a lot of input, but not producing much output.
Okay.
You're kind of like a sponge just soaking it all up.
Right.
You might feel overwhelmed, by all these new sounds and words and grammar rules.
Right.
But it's totally normal.
It's like when you're a baby,
Exactly.
You listen and observe before you start babbling
Yeah.
and forming words.
So true.
So what comes after that silent period?
Well, as you start to gain confidence,
Okay.
you move into what we call the early production stage.
Early production.
Yeah, so you'll start using simple words and phrases. Making basic conversation, asking simple questions.
Right.
You're going to make mistakes, of course,
Right.
but that's completely normal.
It's all part of the process.
Yeah, it's like taking those first wobbly steps as you're learning to walk.
That's a good way to put it.
So you're starting to put those building blocks together and just express yourself,
Yeah.
even if it's not perfect.
And then what happens after that?
So as you progress, you'll enter the speech emergence stage.
Speech emergence.
Yes, and this is where you start speaking more fluently,
Oh, okay.
using longer sentences, and feeling more comfortable expressing yourself even in unfamiliar situations.
That sounds like a really exciting stage.
It is. It's really rewarding.
When you start to see that progress.
Exactly.
So then what?
Well, as you continue practicing and refining your skills, You'll move into what's called the intermediate fluency stage.
Intermediate fluency.
Yeah. And at this point, you can understand and participate in most conversations.
Okay.
Express your opinions clearly. And even start using more complex grammar and vocabulary.
That sounds like a huge milestone.
It is. It's a big accomplishment.
So you've really come a long way at that point.
You have. You're like a seasoned traveler who can navigate new terrain with confidence.
Okay, I like that analogy.
So ultimately, the goal is to reach advanced fluency.
Advanced fluency.
Right, where you can communicate effortlessly in almost any situation.
Wow.
Just like a native speaker.
So you're like a local at that point.
Exactly. You know, all the shortcuts and all the hidden gems.
I love that. So it's not even just about speaking perfectly.
Yeah.
It's about feeling comfortable.
Yeah.
And confident in your ability to communicate.
Exactly. And remember, fluency is not like a destination.
Right.
It's an ongoing journey of learning and growth.
Right.
Even native speakers are constantly expanding their vocabulary.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And refining their language skills.
That's a good reminder.
Mhm.
You know, it's not about reaching perfection.
Yeah.
It's about continuous improvement. That's great.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up today's deep dive, I will leave you with a thought.
All right.
What small step can you take today to move yourself closer to fluency?
Ooh, I like that.
You know, it could be anything from starting a conversation with a stranger to watching an English movie without subtitles.
Or reading an English article online.
Yeah.
Or listening to an English podcast.
Exactly. There are so many possibilities.
There are.
And just remember, you don't have to do it alone.
That's important.
There are so many resources available.
So many.
Online courses, language exchange partners, all sorts of things.
Yep. And most importantly, have fun with it.
That's key.
Embrace the challenges, celebrate the victories,
Yeah.
and never stop exploring.
I love that. Well, this has been such an insightful conversation.
It has.
Thank you so much for sharing your expertise.
My pleasure.
And to all of you listening out there, keep practicing, keep learning, and keep those conversations flowing.
Yes.
We'll see you next time for another deep dive.